Оце мікрофон, да? Один раз, два, три. Лінія стоїть, да? Трошечки отак. Я, в принципі, все одно нічого не чую. Ясно? Да. Добре. Не чую так, все одно нічого. Один, два, раз, два, три. Раз. Один раз. Ми раді вас бачити, шановні гості. Обробка це, не? Вона в тебе включена. Найди якийсь хол отут. Ну, на цей канал просто подати. Вокал ехо. О, давай от вокал ехо можеш поставити мені? Да. Один раз, два, раз. Трошечки ще додав. О. Ні, раз, два, три. А тут навіть два ефекти оце. Раз, два. Все. Добре. Все. Все. Готово.
Keep it quiet for a bit.
Так, можна. Подумай, пограй.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Good afternoon, my friends. Today we have a special event in our Ukrainian rally. We have some special guests today. The Cultural Battalion from Ukraine came here to let us hear some of their lovely music, some singing, and show us, give us a taste of Ukrainian culture. One of the main things that the Ukrainian heroes are fighting for, one of the main things that the Russian terrorist regime is trying its best to eradicate from the face of the earth as the terrorists they are. Without further ado, my friends, I invite them right now, I give voice to them, and let's enjoy the music.
Good afternoon, London, from Cultural Forces. from Ukraine, straight from the front lines in Ukraine. We came to London, to the UK, with a cultural diplomacy mission, and we are concluding our visit today. And in fact, after the concert, we go run into the airport and fly back to Ukraine. What we brought to you to the UK is the music from Ukraine, music performed by warfighters, the actual warfighters and warfighting veterans. We are concluding this week in the UK with a great sentiment of thanks and thankfulness and gratitude to the people of the United Kingdom for supporting Ukraine. And it's astonishing to see the Ukrainian banners flying in the winds of London in recognition of our existential war fight in Ukraine, and we're extremely grateful for this. If the Prime Minister is hearing us at this moment, sir, thank you so much for supporting Ukraine. With us today, two Bandura players, one opera singer, one poet, our commander, Nikolai Serga, will be playing music for around 30 minutes, after which we'll go back to Ukraine with the flight. We also have a violin player as well. This music is heard, we deliver this music to the frontline soldiers because the cultural forces is after the psychological well-being of soldiers on the front line. Our purpose here today is to bring to you the stories of the soldiers who are defending the right to exist, the freedom so much shared by the people in the United Kingdom as well. I'll be telling you more about the cultural forces, but let's play music. And the first artist I'm going to ask to perform for you is called Taras Stolar. Taras is the veteran today. He, as everybody else on our team, joined the front line on the very first day of the war on 24 February 2022. Taras is bringing 40 plus years of experience of playing a typically Ukrainian instrument called Bandura. And Bandura has 62 strings, and that number, even that number of strings, is not enough to unfold, to uncover the depth of the Ukrainian culture and soul. Taras Stolar. first one, did anyone recognize what that was? Yes, it was Sting, Shape of My Heart. And the shape of the heart of Ukraine is freedom, in the same manner as the shape of the heart of the United Kingdom is freedom too. The second piece is called Shedrick, Carol of the Bells, that brings together the family members around the table, Christmas table, every single year. And this piece is Ukrainian. It was written by the Ukrainian composer. Part of our trip here is to announce and defend the rights of our prisoners that have been in captivity for 3+ years. 17 musicians have been held captive in Mariupol, taken over to Russia, and since then they are in captivity. And one of our missions here is to advocate for their release. Taras is going to perform another piece in support of this initiative. We say, who recognized this piece? Probably Mama, I'm Coming Home? Yes? Ozzy Osbourne? And that's about to become the song of the release of the Ukrainian soldiers held in captivity. The next artist is going to be present by the side of Taras, and it's our dear violin player, Olga Rukavishnikova. She started playing violin at the age of 4, and 20 years later she joined the front line as infantry first and then as grenade launch operator. She has received multiple wounds in the battle, and during one of these she lost her eye. But nonetheless she didn't lose her courage and the strive for life. At some point, the doctors told her that she wouldn't be able to play violin again, but last year she proved otherwise, having performed in the Carnegie Hall for 3,000 listeners. Please welcome Olga Rukavishnikova.
Olga.
Taras Stolar and Olga Rukavishnikova. We are offering more Bandura music. And this piece comes from our frontline volunteer, Maria Petroska. Last year she has been performing for the soldiers very close to the front line. She was an unforgettable experience about being exposed to the difficulties on the front line. She has graduated from the Manchester Music School, and today she will be performing for you typical Ukrainian music on Bandura. Please welcome Maria Petroska.
Мила моя, ти покусо єдна, любив я ця не ріка, не два, сили дала зілляся на віки, не мож мила ніяк без ця жити, не мож мила, не мож мила ніяк без ця жити. Світа любов є от Бога дана, ціле може яблуні чептана, хоч би смерті, то мусиш любити, хоч би смерті просто маш терпіти. Під облачком явір зелені, посмотр мила, як то вітер віє, може вирве його з коренями, мила моя, що то буде з нами, мила моя, мила моя, що то буде з нами. Дякую. Слава Україні!
This is Maria Petroska. Our next artist will invite the Italian opera into London today. And this is Yuri Ivaskevich, who is a veteran today, who joined the army on the very first day of the full-scale war. And back in 2023, he stepped on a landmine and he partially lost his leg. Today, he is a volunteer and he brings to the world the depth of the Ukrainian culture in so many languages. Please welcome Yuri Ivaskevich.
Che fai su guarda guardi sto giardino siede si sciura arancio non profumo a così fino dinto cuore se ne va e tu dici guarda Dio ma non da sto cuore basta del viento, torna sul viento, fammi campare. Vira mare del sorriento, che tesoro che nel foro, dove la vista tutto muto, ti ha girata come qua. Guarda tu non si serene, e tu dici a non cantate, e ti vuole tanto bene, te volessero assai, e tu dici guarda Dio, ma non da sto cuore, basta pena dell'amore, tieno cuore non tornare, ma non me la far, per darmi sti del viento, torna sul viento,
А зараз будемо співати всі, бо ми в Україні всі артисти і всі співаки.
Ти признайся мені, звідки в тебе ті чари, я без тебе всі дні, у полоні печалі, може десь у лісах, ти через гілля шукала, сонце руду знайшла, і мене щарувала. Червону руту не шукай вечорами, і в мене єдина тільки ти один, бо твоя врода, то є чистая вода, то є бистрая вода синіх. Бачу я тебе в снах, у дібровах зелених, по забутих стежках, ти приходиш до мене, і не треба нести мені квітку надії, бо давно вже ти вийшла в мої мрії. Червону руту не шукай вечорами, ти у мене єдина, тільки ти один, бо твоя врода, то є чистая вода, то є бистрая вода синіх гір. Червону руту не шукай вечорами, і в мене єдина, тільки ти повір, гей, бо твоя врода, то є чистая вода, то є бистрая вода синіх гір. То є бистрая вода синіх гір. То є бистрая вода синіх гір. Дякую! Дякую вам всім!
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, пані та панове. Дякуємо за вашу участь. З почуттям виконаного обов'язку ми сідаємо і їдемо в аеропорт. Oh, I speak in Ukrainian, sorry. I wanted to say thank you very much for all your support. With the fulfillment of duty, we will departing for the airport, coming back to Ukraine. We've seen so much support here in the United Kingdom, having performed for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the parliaments. We've seen people who are actually personally driving their vehicles for Ukrainian soldiers, and we are grateful for this. We've seen ourselves being soldiers, the medical kits supplied by the United Kingdom medics. We are grateful for this. the armaments, the weapons, the medical kits, vehicles, everything is so much welcome and we are so much grateful for this support. This support does save life. We would like to thank you from the bottom of our heart, from the depth of the Ukrainian culture, from all of us. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Be on the lookout for us back, sometime back before the end of this year. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
God bless and thank you.
Дуже вам дякую, друзі, що сьогодні прийшли. Дякую вам всім, що ви сюди прийшли на наш протест. Наші протести відбуваються тут на Тендавній стріт у середу у 6 годині і у неділю у 3 годині. Сьогодні трішки раніше. Друзі, я тільки що поговорив тут з нашими друзями з боку, з іншими людьми, які роблять свій власний протест. Ми домовилися, щоб вони нам трішки дали тихий час, скажемо, щоб ви послухали цю неймовірно гарну музику, яку ми тільки що чули. Я з ними домовився, ми з ними взагалі домовилися, щоб ми їм також трішки дали той самий час. Вони трішки раніше почали свій протест заново, я маю сказати. Не до цього домовлялися, не до цього. Але дамо їм трохи часу, тишині також. My friends, just in English for everybody to understand, I wanted to thank everyone for coming here. I wanted to thank our friends here from the cultural battalion of Ukraine, the people who keep Ukrainian culture alive no matter what, despite all of the attempts of the Russian terrorist regime to destroy it. And now I'd like to ask you all, we will, as agreed with our friends over there in the other rally, these people, we agreed with them that they will give us some silent time, so we listen to this lovely music, and we will give them some silent time for their own speeches for a little bit. So we'll give them about 20 minutes, something like that. But thank you all for coming today. If you like, we will continue after this little period, little time of respite. And thank you all for coming. Slava Ukraini!
Давайте фото. Валера, ідемо фото робимо, тоді всі вже. Я спокійно. Фото? Фото. Де Тарас? Там є.
Світланка, Світланка, Світланка. З хлопцями для посту. Я ветеран. Ти мене сфоткала? Ветерани. Я знаю, молодці. Я себе маю на увазі.
Так, давайте ще одне фото, ми лише самі.
Так, так, будь ласка.
З тобою, Роман.
Прямо сюди, 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 сюди. Зручно.
Прапора підписати.
Так.
Можна попросити?
Давай, ще. Я тримаю, потім ти мені підбираєш. Добре. Дякую. Так, давай. А я тут ножом помог. Трошки ручку прийму. Я не можу. Ну що, носики, вот так. Римашечка.
Приємно з вами виступати. Дякую вам. Зробили. Валерій, підпишіть, будь ласка, правку.
Так. Краще, давайте в аеропорту підпишемо, бо ми ніколи не виїдемо. Дуже вам дякую.
Dodajem po každé temu. Jestli to barvy bude. Lejko, mám dodám. Dnes dodám jemu lejkovi do barvy. Zkoušet spravuje smysl.
Бангладеш з іншого боку.
Так, я знаю, але вони, по-моєму, перед тим, що був Пакистану, а тоді вже вирішили, що таке
Я не аж так чітко це знаю, цю тему. Я знаю, що він в Індії був деякий час.
Терапію зробиш?
Не вже, Віталік. Ми зараз за кілька хвилин починаємо знову. Ми якби їм вже дали, тут було 40. У 40 знову почнемо.
Гімн буде? Гімн.
Андрій, я якби почну з
Давай я готую. Гімн готую?
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Good afternoon, my friends, and once again, welcome to our rally today. We had a time of music today, a time of silence, when we exchanged some silence with our colleagues here on the side. And now we will continue the rally as usual. For there is a lot that needs to be said, my friends. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate every Ukrainian in the world for the symbolic victory of Alexander Usyk yesterday. Now, Usyk has been truly a symbol of Ukrainian resistance lately. He's been a symbol of Ukraine to a large extent. And it's actually kind of interesting that Dubois, before the fight, he was having a little bit of inflammatory rhetoric, comparing how he's going to win to the Russo-Ukrainian war, implying that it's not going very well. Well, we can see how that ended up for him. Time shows, and we can see that this written in history, that every single time that somebody says, oh, you know, Ukraine stands no chance, they are disproven. My personal favorite was Zhirinovsky. Every Ukrainian knows this name, of one of the most disgusting, most virulent, most idiotic individuals in human history. He was a Russian politician, funnily enough, the leader of the Russian quote-unquote liberal party, which is funny. It has literally nothing to do with liberalism. It was, of course, controlled opposition. Zhirinovsky was there to say that the regime is not doing enough atrocities for them to do even more. That was his job. Zhirinovsky had a pretty famous quote back in the day. He said, "We will win, or I will kick the bucket." Well, my friends, a few weeks later, Zhirinovsky died. I think it's truly symbolic, this quote and many other quotes said in the past. It's truly symbolic for this whole situation. It's as the saying goes, it's not over till it's over. And it's true in this situation above all others, my friends. But we must also not underestimate the Russian terrorist regime, for they have proven themselves to be a very lively piece of filth in this world, a very persistent stain on this planet. But my friends, it is time for the free world to together make the united decision to finally erase this stain from our world, to end the Russian terrorist regime for good and make sure that they do not hurt anyone anymore. I can guarantee you that if Russia as a regime would just disappear, the next day a huge amount of the world's problems would disappear with them. You know why that is? It's because Russia funds every single terrorist groups that might even peripherically work in their favor. But make no mistake, my friends, Russia does not only support those who 100% of the time support them. Sometimes Russia may support certain causes that actually might criticize them a little bit, to give some futile, some pointless criticism that doesn't matter at all. But they will fund them for one reason, because they work in their favor. This is the case for every isolationist party in the free world, my friends. Russia has their filthy hands everywhere. Make no mistake. They have their dirty touch in the far left and the far right parties in the free world. Make no mistake. We cannot trust people who are on the opposite side of the political spectrum simply because on one side they support Russia. Both the polar opposites, both the extremes support Russia. This has been a fact. Only in the center, only the moderates do not support Russia. Because they know better, my friends. They know that we cannot simply commit ourselves to extremes. We cannot answer complicated questions with simplified answers. Now, this situation with Russia, it does have a solution that is quite clear, but it's not an easy solution. It is difficult to achieve. But as long as we are together, my friends, as long as we stay together, we stand together against the Russian terrorist regime, then Russia stands no chance against a united free world. You all know, my friends, I've been quite critical of Trump lately. However, now he's finally starting to do the right thing and providing Ukraine with the Patriot systems, with the Patriot missiles, with the armaments that Ukraine needs, finally. Took him long enough. Some may argue that this change of heart is due to certain controversies in the White House right now. I won't debate that. There may be some truth to that, but truth of the matter is, my friends, even if the reasoning behind this is selfish, aid is still aid. If somebody does a good deed, but for selfish reasons, sure, it's not the same as doing it with good intentions, but it's still a good deed. And it needs to be recognized as such, my friend. And we recognize this act, this latest act done by the American administration, as something good. And we are grateful for that. We criticize whoever deserves criticism. If somebody criticizes us, as long as they make a good point, we will not simply start lashing out against them. But the truth of the matter is, my friends, that the Ukrainian cause is correct and the Russian cause is irredeemable. So it's very, very difficult to find somebody who even peripherically supports Russia or opposes Ukraine for that matter, who's making a good point. It's basically impossible. We've seen these snake oil salesmen so many times. It gives me nausea to look at them at this point, my friends. These Orbans and Fizzos who scream and shout about peace in the world, who say, oh, we should never stand against Russia, we should not escalate this situation. My friends, how many times has Russia escalated this situation? How many times has Russia crossed the lines? How many times has Russia broken international agreements? Countless times. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's a lovely day. It's a lovely day here for a ride in the bike. You know, we see some people having fun. That's very good to see. Very good to see, my friends. Now, you know, my friends, we believe in freedom of speech. We believe that people should be able to defend the cause that they defend. And we also believe that people should be able to defend their cause. To simply shout something incoherently like the pro-Russian side does is no good. That is why we invite people to ask us questions and to interact with us and to learn as much as possible about this situation, because sometimes it's not the fault of the people themselves. Sometimes people live in an echo chamber. Sometimes all they have is Russian propaganda around them. How can we expect somebody to know any better if the only information available is fed to them by Russia? Like a sewer pipe flowing with unmentionables. Now, my friends, I believe, and I believe we all agree on this, that we should tell people the truth. Because if we don't, then they will believe things that may not be true at all. That is why we should speak. That is why we should interact with people. That is why we do interact. That is why we come here to 10 Downing Street on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock and on Sundays at 3 o'clock. So please come if you can make it and show your support. It's unbelievably important that you do. Now, my friends, I think it's very important to focus on some of our main points and not deviate into secondary points. Point number one, unity in the free world. Point number two, a clear objective of destruction of the Russian terrorist regime, and not just weakening, not just stopping them. The Russian terrorist regime needs to be disassembled fully. This needs to be a different change of government that happened after the Soviet Union, after the fall of the Soviet Union. Because when the Soviet Union fell, did it become a good country? No! Some crooks were deposed, other crooks took power. That's what happened. My friends, if Russia is left to their own means, they will again and again and again choose dictatorship. They will always choose dictatorship. They have been conditioned with generations of dictatorships to choose those dictatorships. How can they know any better? This is why there needs to be a de-Putinization of Russia and a de-Russification of the areas occupied by the Russian terrorist regime. This, my friends, is a fact, and it's something that needs to be done. There was a denazification of Nazi Germany after they lost World War II. Oh, nice car there. There was a denazification, and nowadays we need to have a de-Putinization of Russia as well, my friends. Make no mistake, though, this disgusting ideology, it was not started by Putin. This has always existed as part of Russia. Sometimes it got a little bit better, sometimes it got a little bit worse, but usually it was very bad indeed. Usually, Russia ruled the people subservient to them with an iron fist and a boot on their throat. That is always how they rule, that is always how they will rule, until they are no more as an entity. And that, my friends, is what the free world should strive for together. All together, we will win.
All together, we will win.
All together, thank you. We will win.
All together, we will win.
All together, we will win.
All together, we will win.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
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 Fighter jets for Ukraine.
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 Air defense 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 for Ukraine.
Long range missiles 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 for Ukraine.
Let Ukraine strike back.
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 More sanctions on Russia.
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 Seize Russian assets.
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 Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
And now, my friends, we're going to have a short musical break.
because it always good to take questions to the audience, and it also challenges my knowledge, so I can convince you that I actually know what I'm talking about. So one of the things I think it's always very, very important to remember is the people who actually died on the front, fighting the Russian terrorist state, and consequently every rally we always have a minute's silence, so we actually remember those people. So we actually lower our flags and we take a minute's silence, and we take our hats off and things like that. So I'd like to do a minute's silence now if I can, please.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Right, good afternoon. As I said, the topic I usually cover are economic matters, and that's what I intend to talk about this afternoon. Well, since the beginning of time, the first casualty of war has always been the truth. And since the beginning of time, that's continued to be the truth. And one of the aspects that the Russian terrorist state was very keen on is actually hiding the truth. And its first reaction to anything is to actually start lying. But even the Russian terrorist state this week exceeded its own ability to lie by actually not saying anything at all. So the statistics produced by Russia is produced by an organisation called RSS. Now, I, for the life of me, cannot understand how a website, a government website, can be overwhelmed by people logging in to check the inflation statistics, to check the money supply figures, to check various other economic statistics. But this week RSS said their website was actually down for 3 days, and the reason it was down for 3 days was it was being overwhelmed by users. And as I said, for the life of me, I cannot understand how anybody will be logging into their country's national statistics. So I'd therefore like to ask this audience here today, who this week logged into the Office of National Statistics website to get some figures to see how Britain's doing? Am I overwhelmed by responses here? Did anyone log in and ask how Britain's doing economically? One person here did, but we won't talk about it. So it's an example of Russia starts to lie, so it cannot actually even lie about statistics. One of the problems you find in lying about national statistics is it's incredibly hard to get them all right. So for example, when you claim your economic industrial output is very, very large, you also then have to lie about your power usage, because you can't obviously produce tanks or any other equipment. And if you start lying about your electricity production, you then need to start saying, well, how are you actually producing it? So you need to try and have a coherent set of fraudulent statistics, and actually getting your statistics right, and getting them so that a professional statistician can't start looking at them and think, well, they're obviously cooked for the books. And whilst it's never exactly a sellout, there is actually an international conference of people who prepare national statistics, and I had the privilege of attending this. It wasn't quite the sellout that Taylor Swift concerts tend to be, but you know, we all get excited about different things. And we were talking about the preparation of the national statistics, and the ONS prepares its statistics independently of the government. But the Russian representative there said, and the way we do it here is we let the government know some 3 hours ahead of the statistics what they actually are. And the Russian guy actually put his hand up and said, but if you only give the Minister of Statistics 3 hours before they're going to be published, how do you hear and how do you know that's actual question? And we thought, it's not strange actually to ask that question.
Жители Лондона, Гала, думают, что надо мочить вас, козлов. Вот что они думают. И давать оружие, чтобы по московским куполам прилетало.
जिंदा होने की इतला भी हकदार नहीं है, वो कत्ल किए जा चुके हैं, या हमें सिर्फ ये बताया जाए कि इनकी लाश कहाँ दफनाए गए हैं। हम सिर्फ पूछना चाहते हैं, हमारा कसूर क्या है? क्या अपने ही प्यारों की बाजियाबी के लिए आवाज बुलंद करना जुर्म है या दहशतगर्दी? बलूचिस्तान में रोजाना घर घर छापा मारा जाता है, ना सिर्फ मर्द बल्कि हमारी खवातीनों को भी जबरन लापता किया जाता है, सिर्फ इसलिए कि वो अपने अजीजों की रिहाई का मुतालबा करते हैं। ये कैसा रियासत है जहां मजलूम की आवाज को दहशतगर्द समझा जाता है? बलूचिस्तान में इंसानी हकूक की संगीन खिलाफवर्जी का खतरनाक हद तक बढ़ चुका है। रियासत फौज जिसे चाहे उठाकर अगवा कर देता है, ना अदालत में पेश करता है, ना किसी को बताता है कि वो कहाँ है, ना जिंदा है या नहीं। अगर कभी इनकी कोई खबर आता है तो वो एक लाश की सूरत में आता है। पहाड़ों से, बियाबानों से, अस्पतालों से या सड़कों से। यही वही किलिंग डम पॉलिसी है, मारो फेंको, कत्ल और लाशों का सिलसिला। ये कैसी जुल्म है? ये रियासत कैसा है?
And this is just storing up problems for the future, because these people have lost their sons and fathers and husbands, and they've not actually been paid for it, and that will produce a resentful military, well-trained population who are going to be increasingly hard to keep inside the Russian Empire. So Russia is storing up problems in that sense of its future. But one of the aspects I particularly like to talk about is the Russian welfare funds. Now, since the beginning of the Petroska invasion in February 2022, Russia had some 600 billion euros/dollars in reserves. 300 billion of that was back in banks, and these banks were buying like 200 billion in what was known as Euroclear, which was based in Brussels, and the other 100 odd was based around 6 billion was here in London, United Kingdom, the UAE, and various other places. But one of the things that we should be very pleased about, because we regularly talk about sanctions on Russia, is the fact that the frozen assets in the Belgian banks are now going to be held till the end of the year. So whilst that wasn't a very big thing, and would only be of interest to a very small group of people, that's one of the things that's been brought forward, that the 200 billion held in Euroclear is staying there, and it's not going to be repatriated. And the EU did manage to have a united vote on that, and that included the more fringe elements that we sometimes talk about here. So the 200 billion in itself is quite useful to hold, but when you put money on deposit with the bank, you get interest, or you get dividends, or you get coupons, and by and large the funds that are coming out of that are some 10 odd billion a year easily, even though it's been invested in very, very safe assets, and that 10 billion a year is probably going to be used to buy weapons for the Americans, because arguably the Russians should be funding the Russia-Ukrainian war rather than the European taxpayer. So one of the things we quite well can see is that you can actually go and buy 10 billion euros worth of US military equipment, and we have to be pleased that President Trump is allowing those assets to flow, and we'd like to see those assets flow sooner rather than later. But the other thing is, I think it's now time to seize the 200 billion itself, in the sense that yes, this fund might be used to rebuild Ukraine after the conflict, or it might be used at some time in the future. But the net result is there's still 200 billion sitting in Brussels, which isn't being used. So when we talk about seizing Russian assets, these are the Russian assets we should be seizing. And these are Russian government assets. They're not owned by oligarchs, they're not owned by any individual. We could put an act together and we could actually seize those assets rather than just leave them there. So that's one of the things I'd like to see. But Russia itself, we need to talk about the actual what's happening with the ruble. Now, people interested in economics will know that there's to control the currency value, there's three things. There's a triangle of events that you can do. You can control interest rates, you can control exchange rates, or you control the money supply. And one of the things that Russia announced this week, allegedly on the quiet as a result of Ukrainian hackers, is that the governor of the central bank has authorised the printing of significantly more banknotes than they usually print. Now, banknotes by and large wear out, so you buy a nice printer, so many per month. And the Russian rate of printing banknotes is something like 5 billion a month. And the millions put this up to 145 billion. And the big question we have to ask here is why is she putting up the actual printing of banknotes to such an extent? But on the horizon is a liquidity crisis for Russia. So liquidity is how much money have you physically got, and it's quite likely that the Russian banks are actually preparing for a liquidity crisis, and there will be bank runs. And the way you try and mitigate the effects of a bank run is someone wants to come in and physically take their money out, you actually allow them to do that. So the fact that the bill is authorising the printing of massively more money is an indication to me that she's getting ready for a bank run, and she's getting ready to try and mitigate those effects. One of the things we need to account for this week is on Friday is the meeting of the Russian Central Bank, at which they will announce their new interest rates. Currently interest rates there went down from 21% to 20%, and this puts them on a par with some very other weak nations, such as Iran and Lebanon in terms of interest rates. They're actually nowhere near normal European standard nations of about 5%. So this in itself shows a weakness in the currency. But also in terms of lying, we need to look at the Russian so-called inflation rate. The plain Russian inflation rate is some 10% for consumer goods and some 12% for wages. But the reality of it is it must be much higher than that, because if you, again, one of the things that's banned is the equivalent of Tesco's price increases. And if you've got massive faith in your economy, you'll be only concerned about people publishing the price of eggs in Tesco's. So it's quite likely that the Russian inflation is considerably higher than the claimed 10%. But this once again is an example of Russia lying. But the important thing in all of this is Russia is facing inflation, but also its welfare fund, or its sovereign wealth fund, has now gone down from about 120 in February 2022 down to about 35. Now, given that Russia needs about 200 billion a year to run its war, and it's only got probably 40 odd at the most left in the bank, it's running on very, very thin margins. And it's also facing the problem of the drop in oil prices. And oil is finding out to fund the Russian war effort. And the price of Russian oil is now down at about $65 a barrel. To make Russia actually viable, they needed it running at something like $80 a barrel, and it's considerably lower than that. But once again, a good example here is if we impose sanctions properly on Russia and made the export of their oil more difficult for them, this will cut off their funding significantly. So Russia might be posturing to try and give the impression it's got loads of inexhaustible supply of resources. The reality of it isn't, and the probably most important one that's running out of is money. And I personally think that will see the end of the Russian Empire first, and we'll see the breakup simply because Russia won't be able to afford to carry on as it is. And a good example of dictatorial state not being able to carry on is, as a result of economic mess, is the South African apartheid regime is effectively running out of money, and they're obviously exporting gold, etc. But they couldn't carry on with their economy. In 1918, the German army was at its massively extended, but it actually ran out of money and was no longer able to afford its war effort, and as a result, it's actually collapsed. So when we hear about the Russian army when we hear about Russia having massive resources, yes, that's just posturing. Just actually look at what they're doing. Their economic measures, their economic behaviour is the behaviour of an organisation that's in trouble, and is the behaviour of an organisation that hopefully will come to an end in the near future. As I said at the start of this, I'm very happy to take any questions. Is there anybody who would like to ask them? We have a gentleman there. The gentleman over there has asked about secondary sanctions. I think it is about, well, first of all, what is a secondary sanction? A secondary sanction is, the primary sanctions are against the Russian Federation itself. Secondary sanctions are against institutions supporting the Russian Federation. And these primarily are the ones we need to pick on in places like China, Chinese banks, Indian banks, and arguably banks in the United Arab Emirates. But another interesting group of sanctions we could have a go at are the Russian, what's known as the Grey Fleet. The Russians operate a fleet of ships called collectively the Cherry Fleet. The Grey Fleet are ships that occupy their registered in obscure places like Nepal, and they operate out of the Cayman Islands, and they pay into the UAE. Arguably, these are not big powers, and they are powers that the European Union and the United States could take sanctions against. And I personally think we should now go for secondary sanctions, and that goes for the low-hanging fruit before we have a go at the big ones like India and China. Have I addressed your question, sir? Any other thought about that? And we've been asked about Trump sanctions. I think Trump sanctions are quite difficult to actually work out, because the actual sanctions will end, the tariffs will end up on the US taxpayer, but directly the United States isn't actually doing very much business with the Russian Federation. I think there's only like 3 billion annually of business being done. However, if Trump was to introduce sanctions properly, proper secondary sanctions against countries doing business with Russia, then I think they would have a real effect. So yes, very definitely sanctions are important. But the area that we need to really concentrate on sanctions is high-tech goods like microchips, things like that. And the very strange country that's actually supporting Russia is Taiwan, which is continuing to export microchips to the Russian Federation. And again, on obscure websites like us, the Ukrainian government publishes a list of components which have landed in cruise missiles that have been produced by places like Taiwan. And sadly, those actually show, even up until a few months ago, that these countries have continued to export key equipment to the Russian Federation. You could argue it's dual use, but no, they must be using it to put into cruise missiles and the like. Have I asked you a question, sir? Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Thomas. How do we persuade countries like Taiwan that stand with us in terms of politics to actually back it with economic sanctions on Russia? How can we, do we, we should just condemn them, right, because they show us support, but at the same time, yeah, how do we fix this issue?
Personally, I think talk is very cheap. It's always very interesting to see what people actually do when it comes to it. And I think Taiwan is going to need defence against the People's Republic of China, and it's time to start reminding them of who their real enemies are and who their real friends are. And Britain has by and large stood with most of the democratic nations in the world. It's also worth remembering that in 1939, Britain was the only country that voluntarily went to war with Nazi Germany. All the other countries had a choice. So in terms of what we should actually do, is we should actually put sanctions in and say to Taiwan, if you want us to come and defend you, then it's time you stood with us and stood to support Ukraine. Any other questions? We've had a question, is the Russian budget deficit out of control? One of the very few people who's actually competent in Russia is Nabila, who's the governor of the central bank, and she has arguably kept Russia in the war longer than someone who would be less competent. Is the deficit out of control? I would be controversial and say yes it is, simply because Putin's word is law. And Putin doesn't really understand economics, and he's told them to just carry on producing tanks, and he just carry on telling the banks to just fund the arms manufacturers. And we are going to see a banking crisis because the Russian banks have been told to give loans to the Russian arms manufacturers, and they're not repaying them back. What they're actually doing is they should be paid back over 10 years, and now they're saying they're going to pay them back over 20 years. They're giving them a reduced period of payment, that sort of thing. So I think the Russian budget deficit is overrunning, and the fact that this is one of these other things, the fact that the ruble has actually gone to about 80 to the dollar now, means that Russia's actually getting less dollars per barrel, but it's expensive in dollars, so it's expensive in rubles. So its deficit will actually get worse in that respect. All we really need to see is the price of oil coming down and the value of the ruble going up. But and that would be bad for the Russian economy in both the long and the short term. Have I asked you questions then? Anybody else? Regrettably, it isn't really The question was, there's some 40 billion left, is how long will that actually keep going? It's very difficult to tell that. I personally think it'll probably last early 2026, and the reason for that is that winter is a very expensive time to keep your army in the field, and the other sanctions, arguably on the Russian shadow fleet, will kick in. So I reckon that Russia will start to run out, seriously visibly running out of money in early 2026. But we're already seeing signs that Russia's running out of money and it's not paying its troops. And that's a very bad sign. We're also seeing examples of Russian workers saying they're not being paid. But hopefully we'll see a bank run or a bank collapse before that. But the massive amount of actual printing of banknotes that's been authorised is indication they're expecting the bank run. Have I addressed your question, sir?
Russian jets, they have 50% of American spare parts.
The question the gentleman was asked is about spare parts for Russian jets. Now, I can't claim to be a great expert on Russian jets, but again, this is an example of they are being using American components and arguably Taiwanese components. Is we need the sanctions properly policed, we need the proper sanctions properly enforced. Regrettably, one of the things that Elon Musk did was get rid of the department, was actually trying to enforce the sanctions. So in that sense, that's a step backwards. But no, I'd argue that we enforce the sanctions properly, and that will damage the Russian high-tech equipment, which is already noticeable by its absence. Because one of the things that is noticeable about what's actually flying over Ukraine is there are not many Russian jets going anywhere near Ukrainian airspace. And we're seeing a lot of drones, a lot of cruise missiles, but we're not seeing many actual manned aircraft. And those that are going near Ukraine are few and far between. And again, let's just talk about who might be lying here. We don't see any Russian pilots in the press. If Russian jets were being shot down and Russian pilots were surviving, we would see people like that appearing in press conferences. We saw some North Koreans appearing, and we've seen some Russian conscripts appearing. We would be seeing some proper prestige soldiers appearing if they were being captured. Anyone else? Thank you for your time. We'll now have some more music.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Now, my friends, we're going to have another short musical break.
Слава!
Вам України, тричі.
Смерть, смерть, смерть!
My friends, very fresh news just about an hour ago. Thank you very much for showing it to me. There were news that the Moscow airport is being closed. Apparently the Russian skies are not so safe after all, my friends. What a shame, truly, what a shame that the Russians have to now finally face the same thing, or rather not even the same thing, just a small little snippet of the same horror that they have been inflicting on the Ukrainian people for so long. My heart truly weeps for them, my friends, that they will not be able to go for some well-deserved vacations. And by them I mean, of course, their elites. As your average Russian is not going to any vacation. The only place they would afford is Crimea. And as we all know, Crimea, although under Russian occupation, is not the safest place in the world at the moment. Now, my friends, the most important message about all of this is as follows. This is what Russia brought onto themselves. This is what Russia has been doing to Ukraine for years. This is what Russia did to so many countries in the world. Like Syria, for example, where they leveled Aleppo to the ground. But my friends, the most important message in all of this is that Russia and your average Russian needs to, at long last, understand what is going on in Ukraine and what they're supporting by either voting for Putin or simply by remaining silent in the face of what's going on right now. Now, thank you very much. We know that there were many people who fled Russia at the beginning of their mobilization, their partial mobilization, as we know. If I'm not mistaken, the number was about 1 million, mostly men, left. We're not very keen to fight, and I understand them. I understand them very well, In fact, that is the reasonable choice to do, to leave Russia in the face of the current actions of the regime, to leave it, cut relations, forget you're Russian. That's the best choice. However, I'd like to speak about some very particular cases, something that's become very famous lately. It's not the Russians who leave Russia, it's some Westerners who go to Russia looking for whatever they're looking for. Sometimes they say they're trying to escape, quote-unquote, the woke culture. Sometimes, funnily enough, they say they want to escape racism. I know, it's funny. It's truly funny. I mean, there was a pretty disturbing video that surfaced not too long ago. I'm sure many of you, my friends, have seen that video. It's of a black lady who moved to Russia from the United States of America. And she was claiming that she was moving away from racism in her area. Now, it's fair enough. People go through all kinds of things in their life. And it's perfectly fine for her to move out of a place she dislikes and go to a different place that she likes more. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. Okay, I don't like the place where I'm living. I'm going to move to that particular place. It's fine. But my friends, to Russia, to flee racism and go live to Russia. I mean, from the frying pan into the fire, my friend. What else can I say? I don't know what to say about that even. To move out of the United States to Russia, to flee from racism. It's suicide. It's literal suicide. She had her nose all bloodied up. She was crying. Her eyes were sunk. She obviously took a beating. She was saying her neighbors were harassing her. There were some videos of her neighbors, harassing her. So she was lying about that. Now, again, my friends, it's a disturbing picture. It's a disturbing video. But it's very important for everybody to watch that video and to realize that all of these conversations about, Russia's good, Russia's cheap, Russia's nice, it's pure nonsense. Russia is a disgusting regime that does not deserve to exist. Now, my friends, we have a very energetic individual today. My friend, would you like to ask a question? I'm happy to answer. We have a very energetic individual here. We like that. We like people with energy. Hello, my friend. Would you like to ask a question? No? Hello, do you want to ask a question, my friend? No? No? Any questions? No? That's fine. I don't want to put you on the spot. No, from there. Don't worry. No, I don't mean.
I'll stand here.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
I'm pro-Ukraine.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. Putin
God bless.
is evil.
He is, yes, thank you.
Yeah. I'm pro-Ukraine.
Thank you very much.
in Afghanistan. Trust me,
Fair
I'm
enough.
supposed to liberate people. No. All it done was, there's no... you don't
Well, I mean,
get-
it was done in the wrong way, for sure.
You don't get nothing out of war. just get that.
It's a little bit of a simplified view, but fair enough. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Appreciate it. No worries, my friend. You know, we're always asking people to give some of their own mind, give a piece of their own mind to us. We're perfectly happy to interact with people even if they disagree with something. It's no problem at all. Now, my friends, I will come back to what I was saying. There's another bit of news. Now, this one is even more interesting than the previous one. I know it's difficult to comprehend, it's difficult to imagine. How can it be stranger than a black lady moving to escape racism into Russia, then suffering from racism in Russia? How can it be stranger than that? But it can. It was a family from the United States of America, again, from the United States, that moved to Russia to escape, I quote, woke culture. They moved to Russia, and guess what? The husband is now on the front line, fighting for Russia. I mean, congratulations to him. He sure escaped woke culture. You know, this reminds me of a meme. There's this stupid idea that Russia likes to spread. Oh, you know, the Western armies, they're weak. They're all weak. They're all, you know, they're doing pride parades in the military. It's not a real military. This is what they say. This is what the Russian terrorist regime loves to talk about. And it's like the stupidest thing in the world. No, my friends, in the West, people have the freedom to choose who they want to date. So, if there is a couple of men or of women who want to date each other, they're free to do as such. Sounds fair. In Russia, it's a little bit different. You know, in their military in particular, rape is widespread throughout the Russian military. In fact, this is why Prigozhin himself was using a slur for homosexuals when directing himself to the Russian military. Why was he doing that? Because he's a homophobe. Most likely, yes. But there was another reason. It's because Prigozhin knows about the Dedovshchina and about many other dirty, filthy practices in the Russian terrorist regime's military. You see, according to their worldview, if two men are having sex consensually, that's unacceptable. Russia doesn't like that. But in their military, where some men rape other men day and night all the time, that's A-okay. They close their eyes to that. It doesn't exist. And it's truly an interesting worldview. It shows the Russian quote-unquote culture for what it is. But I digress. Let's come back to the conversation at hand. So, an American family moves to Russia to escape quote-unquote woke culture. The husband gets enlisted and goes into the military. Now, the husband right now is in the stage of denial. He's a little bit in this situation of, there were some videos surfacing with him. He was saying, oh, you know, I'm here, I'm proving my right to be in this country. You know, all in English, obviously. Which is funny because the Russian military doesn't really have much translation going on. So the individual is going to try to understand Russian without actually speaking Russian, which is quite a funny thought to have. But my friends, the main question we have to ask about all of this is, why Russia? Okay, I mean, sure, if somebody doesn't like to live in the West, fine, no problem at all. I'm a migrant here. A lot of us are migrants. I believe that if a person dislikes something about the country they live in, if they come with good intentions, go right ahead and migrate, no problem. You dislike it? Fine. Go to a country you like. This is how it should be. And if the country you move to is bad, you don't like it, fine, move back. Go back to the country where you went, where you were originally. It's fine. There's no problem with that. But my friends, what I personally don't appreciate is when people are so incredibly ungrateful for the good quality of life they had, and then they move to the hellhole that is the Russian terrorist regime. For what? Looking for better quality of life. I mean, that individual, that husband, he probably saw the video of Tucker Carlson sniffing the Russian bread in a French store in Russia, Auchan. For those who are not aware, Auchan is a French store, not a Russian store. Very important bit of information. And he was, you know, going crazy over that bread, that French bread in Russia. He was saying, oh, look how great Russia is. They got fresh bread. It's amazing. My friends, what kind of a world do we live in? Where an individual is going to start simping over bread instead of talking about the actual regime he's supposed to be reporting on. This is old news. This video of Tucker Carlson is very, very, very old news. It was years ago. But my friends, apparently some people still didn't get the message. Apparently some people look at Russia and think, oh, you know, that's a beacon of civilization, that's a beacon of traditional values, right? Okay, let's talk about traditional values. I'm sure I don't have to explain to anyone here and any of the passerbys that the Soviet Union persecuted religious people. Christians, Muslims, Jews, you name it, anyone. Any religious group, the Soviet Union was persecuting them hardcore. It wasn't jokes, my friends. It wasn't like, oh, you know, you pay a little bit more tax. No, it wasn't like that. It was like you denounce your faith or you die. Simple choice. And now, in the current Russian terrorist regime, the current patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church is an ex-KGB agent. The same exact people who persecuted Christians just a few decades ago. One of them is the head of the Russian Orthodox Church. Make it make sense, please. Because I personally do not understand how somebody can see this individual as a man of God. How somebody can see this individual, this creature, as a representative of religion. How is it possible for people to be this stupid and think that this guy, an ex-KGB agent, is going to be a good head of a church? How? My friends, the writing is right on the wall. The Russian terrorist regime's church, their Muscovite patriarchate, or the Russian Orthodox Church, it's known by a few different terms. It is not an actual church, it is a tool, a political tool of the Russian terrorist regime with which they push their propaganda worldwide. This is why we said this before and we repeat it again. To give freedom to the Russian Orthodox Church to act as they please, it's not religious freedom. It's allowing your enemy to walk right into your door, pretend to be your pal, your buddy, your religious guru, and then allow him to subvert you from within. It's a disaster waiting to happen. The Russian Orthodox Church should be sanctioned worldwide because it's not a real church. Even the Greek Orthodox Church still refers, even now, to the Russian Orthodox Church as, I quote, the church in the swamp. Why is this, you may ask? Because the Greek Orthodox Church never truly, fully recognized the Russian Orthodox Church. They recognized the Kiev Orthodox Church, yes, because that was the capital of Orthodoxy in the Kievan Rus. What's the Russian Orthodox Church? A fabrication of Muscovy. That is what it is. And now more than ever, with a KGB agent ruling that church and another KGB agent ruling that country, I mean, what a country to live in, right? Traditional values, all right? Very traditional, surely. My friends, if it wasn't clear before, Russia is not a traditionalist country. Russia is not a defender of Orthodox values. Russia is a country-sized criminal syndicate. They use religion as a tool. They use language as a tool. They use ethnicity as a tool. They even use sports as a tool. This is why we've said it so many times in the past. Ban Russian athletes, ban Russian artists, ban everyone who has even a slither of support for the Russian terrorist regime. We need to make this a worldwide standard to meet for every single Russian in the world, to fully and completely condemn the Russian terrorist regime. And when they do, when they act against the Russian terrorist regime, fine, let them act, let them participate in sports, no problem. But it needs to be done. No more fake tolerance to people who don't tolerate us, who would love to see us die in a puddle of blood. No more of that. My friends, we can't afford that kind of behavior with these individuals, these disgusting individuals. One day they shake hands with Putin, the next day they go and participate in the Olympics. What? One day they show for Z propaganda, the next day they go into the free world, the same exact countries that have Russia sanctioned. And then to allow them to have even the chance to get gold or silver or bronze medals and get the popularity and get the clout, it's absolutely ridiculous. It cannot happen. It needs to stop. Very glad that Thomas has mentioned something important a while ago. This is another very important thing that needs to happen. My friends, It's time to stop trading with Russia. It's time to claim and to recognize Russia fully and completely as a terrorist regime. It's time to stop cutting relations with Russia for good. Not a slap on the wrist, not a little bit of a rhetoric of condemnation. No, no more. No more trade, no more interaction, no more recognition of Russia. A terrorist regime through and through. Until that happens, my friends, we're holding back. The free world is holding back. It's holding back against Russia as Russia has fully changed its economy to a wartime economy. And we're still playing chicken with them. We're still playing stupid games. And you know how the saying goes, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. We've been trusting the word of the Russian terrorist regime for far too long. What's the point? How many times must they lie to us and spit in our faces until we finally start treating them with the same respect they showed the free world? None. No respect whatsoever. Condemnation and disdain. This is what we get from Russia. This is always what the free world got from Russia. Let's not listen to this stupid rhetoric that, oh, you know, why are we mistreating Russia? Why are we not treating them as equals? Because they don't deserve to be treated as equals. It's as simple as that. You can't treat everybody as an equal. If they misbehave, if they commit crimes, if they commit themselves to a disgusting lifestyle, how can they expect the same rules and laws that apply to law-abiding people to be applied to them? How can they expect the same treatment? It's like a murderer that goes on a killing spree, shanks a whole bunch of people on the street, and then goes to jail and is put behind bars. He says, oh, how come I don't have the freedom to leave? I thought we lived in a free country. I'm a man just like you, right? Well, wrong. Not just like you, not just like everybody else, no. There needs to be punishment for each crime. And the Russian terrorist regime has committed far too many for us to keep ignoring it. It's time to stop. It's time to stop looking the other way when Russia commits crimes. And it's time to understand, my friends, that Russia does not plan to end its conquest with Ukraine. If Russia wins this war, they will continue. 100% they will continue. Now as we speak, the CCP, China, is supporting Russia in their endeavor. If Russia wins this war, they are sure to use it in their favor. They've been aiding them any way they can. They're trying to make it seem indirect, but not too long ago the mask slipped, and they admitted they don't want Russia to lose the war. Quite a big reveal, if you ask me. Well, who could have seen that one coming, right? I jest, of course. Everybody could have seen that coming. Everybody should have seen that one coming. Russian allies, quote unquote, because they're not truly friends, are not just the Ayatollah Iran and North Korea. They have more allies than that because the free world has more enemies than that. And we need to understand that at long last. Just because we or certain pacifists, certain people may not feel any hatred to anyone else, any other country in the world, doesn't mean that they don't feel any hatred towards you. And once that hatred connects with power and opportunity, then they will act, they will attack, and they will destroy the free world if they get the chance to do as such. We need to know our enemy, and we need to know our friends, my friends. Above all, so that we are not caught off guard, and do not wake up with a knife at our throat one morning. So that doesn't happen, we should arm Ukraine, should give Ukraine what's necessary to put Russia down for good. It's time to end this rhetoric and this demeanor of allowing our enemies to take all initiative in the world. Personally, I'm very happy with the latest news from the UK military. They are changing their military for the better, for much better. They are investing a lot in drones. And that's the future of warfare, my friends. It is. We've seen some socialists scream and shout, oh, welfare, not warfare, welfare, not warfare. I'm sure some of them might actually believe in that nonsense. Some of them might actually believe, oh, you know, this sounds good, this sounds like a nice little quote. But my friends, what good is welfare when you are invaded, your country is taken over, and you have no more freedom to do anything except what the invader says you should do? What good is welfare at that point? What good is welfare to the if Russia takes over? You think the Russians will take care of them? Look how they're taking care of their own. Their babushkas and dedushkas are all freezing in their homes in one of the countries that's the biggest producer of natural gas in the world. How does that work? I'll tell you how it works. Because in Russia, you don't have any kind of power over the resources of your country. The government does. And if we want the same system, if certain people want to live in the same kind of regime, I mean, the door is open. The door to Russia is wide open. We can move right in. But I think before doing that, people should seriously consider what they're doing and should take a good, hard look at all of the countless evidence of people moving to Russia, expecting golden mountains and chocolate rivers waiting for them, and then finding that the brown of the rivers is a different kind of liquid. I will not go any further with that. You, my friends, have gotten what I mean. But truth be told, my friends, we sometimes do have to use this punchy wrapper. We sometimes do have to speak about filth, so that filth is not able to leave the sight of the other people. Out of sight, out of mind, they say. We need to look at Russia and look at Russia carefully. We need to know what Russia is, how much of a disgusting regime it is, and we need to know what we must do together to finally put it down for good. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. No trade with Russia. No trade with Russia. No trade with Russia. More sanctions on Russia. More sanctions on Russia. More sanctions on Russia. Seize Russian assets. Seize Russian assets. Seize Russian assets. Well, this is a particularly interesting conversation that has been had in many circles in Europe. To seize Russian assets, big taboo for a lot of people. Why though? Why is it such a big taboo? Because it's illegal, because it's breaking the rules. My friends, look at the rules. Look at the respect Russia's shown for the rules and laws of others in the world. Look at their respect. And ask yourself, can you truly consider yourself the good guy in the situation when you play abiding by certain rules and you lose against someone who breaks those rules left, right, and center, and you let the enemy win, you let the bad guy win, the psychopath win? I mean, is it worth it for you to pat yourself in the back and say, oh, you know, I followed the rules until the very end, yes, I'm the righteous man? My friends, I think it's pointless. I think it's complete nonsense. Why should we apply rules towards Russia that they do not apply to us? Russia is using their own version of hybrid warfare. They're putting pressure on the West any way they can. Kidnappings, assassinations, arson attempts, sabotage, you name it, everything they can get away with. How many more news of thugs hired by Russia in the free world to burn this piece of equipment or this storage house? Or the Prime Minister's home, for that matter. How many more news of this must be here until we finally take the gloves off and put Russia down for good? How much more of this, my friends? How many more times must we allow, quote unquote, activists to destroy British weapons paid by the British taxpayer just for the sake of their idea of peace? This is complete nonsense. We fully and completely condemn any kind of quote-unquote activism that destroys British weapons, the weapons of the British military. The people who have sworn to protect this country. And we have these complete idiots going to the storehouses and destroying the equipment, saying, oh, we want peace, we don't want war. Stupid. Stupid. Like sheep opening the gate for the wolves, saying, oh, you know, the poor wolf, he's a bit cold outside, you know. He wants to come in too and have some of this heat. Oh wait, what's that? He's gnawing on my throat. That is what's going to happen, my friends. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't, because people will realize what the truth of the situation is. That is why we're here, to tell people. That's right, England, my friend. We love England here. Thank you, Britain. 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 That's right. London is the capital of Great Britain, for those who didn't know. It's a joke, my friends. It's something that the Ukrainian community sometimes says. You know, people who are learning English. By the way, Uzi's English is getting much better. I've seen some of his speeches lately. It's much better English these days. Although I do feel a little bit sad because he doesn't sound as funny as he used to before. But there was this really funny moment when he was talking about we shouldn't push the horses to Dubois. And Dubois completely just, the whole thing went over his head. He didn't get it at all. Basically, it's a Ukrainian saying, don't push the horses. You know, in a carriage, a horse is pulling the carriage, right? You shouldn't be pushing the horse because then the horse might trip. You shouldn't be trying to speed up the horse. That's what it means. Don't go too fast or you'll trip. You'll get yourself in trouble. Dubois, you know, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Let's just say that. But you know, he's a good boxer, but not as good as Usyk. Usyk is still better. The best in the world, surely. Now, my friends, coming back to the topic at hand. Thank you all very much for coming here. And never be shy, never be afraid of telling people the truth of what's going on in Ukraine. People need to know. Don't immediately get angry if people give you some counterpoints, if people start asking some provocative questions. We shouldn't get angry with that. We should simply tell them calmly and straightforward what the answer to those questions is. Because, my friends, not everybody knows everything. Nobody is born learned. And many people, they don't have access to all the information necessary to know what's going on. We shouldn't immediately assume that people have ill intentions with what they say. Some of them are just ignorant. Some people want to know, want to learn what's going on in Ukraine and how we can all stop this war. And we should be straightforward and patient with them, telling them, we end the war, the Russo-Ukrainian war, by ending Russia. That is the one and only way to end this war for good, my friends. And that is the one and only objective that the whole free world should put in front of itself and strive for unanimously and unequivocally. This is what we should do together, my friends. And this is what we will do towards victory. All together, we will win. 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 World, wake up! 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 Russia is a terrorist state! 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 Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Героям України тричі! Ворогам України тричі! And now, my friends, we're going to end this rally as we started it, with the Ukrainian anthem. Perhaps in a short while, before we do, once again, thank you all for coming here. Our rallies happen on Wednesdays at 6 and on Sundays at 3. Друзі, наші протести тут відбуваються на Downing Street у середу у 6 годині і у неділю у 3 годині. Будь ласка, приходьте, якщо маєте час. У нас тут не релігійна процесія, якщо хочете приходьте, можете між собою говорити. Ми взагалі припрошуємо людей до цього, щоб вони обмінювалися важливою інформацією. Я вам чесно скажу, я не проти, коли бачу, що люди між собою говорять, я думаю, це важливо. Щоб люди казали одні одним, що відбувається, щоб ми всі розуміли ситуацію, і щоб ми всі знали, що сказати, якщо хтось до нас звернеться з простим запитанням. На кшталт, що відбувається в Україні. Я думаю, нам дуже важливо це знати. А тепер гімн України.
Усміхнеться
доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Thank you.
Терапія?
Давай. Так побачимо, що вони тут кажуть. О, дякую, може тут трішки кучерявий знов. Що кажуть, блін. С какой целью орки? Блін, срут в коментарях. Друже, я тобі чесно скажу, це не зовсім орки, це боти, блін. Я знаю, що вони по-схожому розмовляють одні до одних. Люди, які підтримують Росію, вони неможливо відрізнити їхні аргументи від аргументів бота, якби штучного інтелекту. Але багато з цих це справді штучний інтелект. Це боти, так, це боти. Правду кажу, спортслайд. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for coming today. Thank you. Nah, it's fine. We were kind of used to it. We do it for 2 hours. Yeah. Thank you for coming, guys. If you have some time, you know, we're always happy to see new people.
Oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, we did.
Знаєш, вишиванка, ти?
Yeah, yeah.
Ми купили в Україні в Косові. Знаєш, що ми косовське купили там.
This is a nice t-shirt I got here from these guys. They got some good t-shirts like that. I got every color they have. Oh, let's see next time, my friend.
Їдемо в Україну через 2 тижні, то ми вже там
зрозуміло. Ну, хай щастить. Good luck, guys. You know. Second time. Your second time in Ukraine, yeah?
Yeah. So we're going mid-August. We're going. So really good. Oh, I liked it so much. The festival. It's amazing. Open my eyes completely. It's a tiny bit, but it's amazing. Really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that people are more interested than ever before in Ukraine right now. I think that's going to be great, especially when the war ends and for
I mean, that's right.
for rejuvenating the economy of the country. That's going to be really good.
Yes.
I think it can, when the war ends, it's going to be a fast track to a better economy, to a better lifestyle for the people.
Yeah, we got to get there first, absolutely. So
It's a hopeful time. It will be a hopeful time. What's your name, my friend?
Martin.
Martin. Nice to meet you. Павло. Як вас звати?
Марія.
Марія, щойно познайомилися з Павлом.
Ти дуже файно говориш.
Дякую. Thank you very much.
Like you are not, how old are you, like 20 something?
29.
29, you're like experience like 60 because you know everything, you know, from Soviet Union.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a long time now. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we were doing rallies every day. Back in the day, I wasn't speaking that much because we had a lot of people who wanted to, say their own message as well. These days, we have less people, but we still have, some good people, coming here regularly.
Yeah.
One
Which is
time
great.
he had, some speech in
Oh, you did?
Holland
Lovely.
Park, yeah, because he said that he would like.
That's great. That's
I
great.
did, yeah.
If you like, we
It's
can
okay.
give you some time
Thank
to
you.
do a little
Thanks
speech here as
very
well.
much. Well, I was wondering actually, the European movement used to be not far from here around the corner.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they should be here.
They should. They should.
Absolutely. So.
I'm very disheartened that the new Farage party is popular nowadays. They're actually more popular than I expected. It's very sad.
It's terrible. Yeah.
I hope there's going to be a move to re-establish connections with Europe.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think so. With the
should be a strong attempt at that.
I think particularly from the younger generation, I think they're much more enthusiastic. Really, I mean, definitely.
We just didn't understand. I asked him, but he couldn't. You said CCP. What does it mean?
CCP, Chinese Communist Party.
CCP,
Okay.
Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, I told him.
It's the ruling party in China.
He said Chinese
Wasn't that the
Communist-
old Soviet Union as well, insignia? CCP?
That's SSSR
SSSR, yeah.
or
That's
USSR in
or
English.
USSR, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a bit.
Yeah, you said communist.
Most of them they
Chinese
kind of sound similar, so I see
True.
I understand the confusion.
Yeah, well,
They do sound kind of similar, right?
let's hope there's movement on the
Ти тут
sanctions.
учився у цьому?
Ні, я в Португалії більшу частину життя вчився, я потім сюди переїхав з
Що ж ти
Португалії.
закінчив?
Я взагалі-то вчився там якби на курсі актора, щось таке.
Моя дочка закінчила тут медіа
Так.
ТВ, так.
О, прикольно.
Працює на цьому.
Вона тут працює, так? В Великобританії?
Вона 10 років вже тут працює на X-Factor, Love
Так.
Island, всякі передачі.
Гарно,
А
гарно.
син закінчив
Поздоровляю.
філософію і робить у civil service.
Непогано, у вас такі діти
Все, слава
успішні.
Богу, я за дітей рада.
Це добре, дуже добре.
I said that I'm happy with my children. Ilona actually
Yeah.
quite successful.
Well,
Just
yeah.
as well.
Things are looking good at the moment, all
Yeah.
better, so that's good.
Lovely
Obviously
stuff.
things can go any which way, but whatever
And
happens,
he
whatever
is
happens.
a lecturer in university in
Kent,
Canterbury
yeah.
University.
Uh-huh.
He's lecturer.
That's,
Very nice.
so, but, no, I thought the European movement would be more active here, but they're just around the corner. They're not far away. But I'm a member, so I email them so many times. I keep.
If you don't mind, let them know. They can
I will,
come here
I will,
if they can
yes,
make it. We're always happy to have them here. I personally
I think they should be there.
look back in the
absolutely.
day when Brexit was happening. I kind of just abstained from the whole issue because I was just I was kind of a newcomer here. I didn't feel like it was fair for me to tell people, oh, this is right, this is wrong. I was still
Sure.
not a citizen.
Okay.
I couldn't vote about anything. But in hindsight, I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse about
But I
Brexit.
mean, the European always has been meant to be broader. It's meant to be the Council of Europe,
Yeah.
so it's a bigger family. And then just
Exactly,
Europe,
exactly.
Always. So I don't know why they should be coming. And they will.
should,
I
they
just
should.
bombard them with emails again to come on down.
Yeah.
Because that's what they should be doing, especially because of relations between EU and UK.
It's weird how they're now saying, oh, that wasn't real Brexit. They're saying, oh, it wasn't done right. what does that even mean, man? There was no Brexit that would have worked.
No,
I think
exactly.
It was just a very bad idea.
Well, yeah. So they're finding out now. Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. So.
Hopefully we can reestablish connections.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. See you guys next time. Thank you for coming, guys. Thank you for coming. До побачення. Що? Жінка з України, чоловік британець. Непогано. Добре, що прийшли.
We're in Chinatown. Where are you going? We're going to Chinatown with others.
А хто ми?
Я та батько.
Да? Твій тато?
Так.
О.
А він питає, скільки тобі років?
Добрий день.
Добрий.
29. Да. На, Віталій, тримай. Все, добре, я думаю, я терапію закінчу. Я
зараз закінчу.
не дуже аж їх багато, тим більше.
Наступного разу.
Ні, мені зараз йти треба, Віталій. Я не думаю, що я довго
Ми
зможу
туди.
затриматись. Я теж туди, я піду заодно собі зайду, що скуплю.
Ну крепкий,
Теску.
хорошо выглядишь. А сколько
Дякую.
рекорд штанги? Толкал?
Ні, я трошки не так, я якби на машинах роблю це. На станках. На станках, так.
Подтягивание.
Підтягування робив, звісно, роблю. Ну я не аж так багато. Ні, це треба робити. Я їх трошки тримаю підтримку і роблю кілька разів, там, скажімо, по 10, по 15 кожен раз, кілька разів. Де мій люблю?
Так, что мы решили?
Китайский город, Чайнатаун.
Да. А что, кто это?
Это я, и всякая русня пишет. Прямая.
Все, выключай. Ну что, выключай. Выключай.
Терапію не робимо.
Я не думаю, я не знаю. Я якби вже все там сказав. Їх не дуже багато сьогодні цих блоків. Вони